Good morning, everybody, and welcome to TLC Live as every Wednesday. Good morning, Orlando.
Good morning. How was your week?
It was very, very busy, but it was very productive and very good. As productive as our show today. We have three important guests today.
Yep. And we're going to move very quickly because all of our guests are very busy. And our first guest is actually my senator in my second home in Texas in Senate District 19. Pete Flores won a special election to become the first Hispanic, I guess, since Reconstruction to win Senate District 19. He's a former, I guess, wildlife, Parks and Wildlife, or what is it, game warden here in Texas. So he's been in law enforcement for many, many years. He's a rock star down there, and he's extremely busy, but we wanted him up first to tell us a little bit about his district and his race. But I wanted to tell you folks that are watching us, just to give you an idea of what this man has to cover. There are 254 counties in Texas.
Wow.
And as a state senator, I'm going to read you the list of counties that Pete Flores represents. You ready? Brewster, largest county in Texas. Terrell, Val Verde, Uvalde, Zavala, DeMitt, Frio, Medina, Maverick, parts of Bexar County, Real, Edwards, Crockett, Pecos, Reeves, Atascosa, and my county, Kinney County. Senator, I don't know how you do it.
Well, it's wonderful to be able to represent everyone in this district. About 830,000 people. Each there are 31 senatorial districts in the state. Of course, we won in a special election 2 years ago, so we're up in a few weeks to try to come back, and we with the Lord's help, we'll be able to do that again. I had the privilege to be able to break the ice, if you will, and so not only am I the first Republican senator in this district since the Civil War, but I'm the first Hispanic Republican senator in Texas history. So hopefully I will not be the last. And there are only two members, Hispanic Republicans, in the entire Texas legislature, for your information. One in the House, Representative Lozano, and myself in the Senate. So that has to change. And as we continue to go out and spread our message, and also to perform and do what we say we're going to do, that will resonate more than all the political rhetoric in the world.
Senator, I have a lot of friends here in Houston that are watching with amazement what's going on down in South Texas, particularly around, let's say, counties like Maverick County and DeMitt County along the border, Val Verde, and of course portions of Kinney County and Terrell County. And they don't understand here in the urban areas how the Mexican American, the historic Tejanos in Texas, are supporting conservatives and Senator Pete Flores. And so share with you why you think there's such a conversion now of Latinos, Tejanos, Hispanics, Mexican Americans, every Latino supporting the conservative down in South Texas.
Well, first of all, you got to, there's an old saying that says, La cara hace milagros, FaceTime makes miracles. And so you have to show up. You don't take anything for granted. And you show, our culture has been here in Texas for well over 300 years. And so it's an old culture that's survived, 6 different flags, but yet the culture itself remains intact. And that is a culture where we believe highly in the very same values that all of us do, generally speaking, where we hold our faith first and our families second and our flag third. And but all three are very important to us. And so as we go forward, it's not about going out to try to convert everyone, but rather to show respect, show up, and say that we are you and you are us, and we are one. Our national motto is E pluribus unum, out of many one. But here we have shared the bonds of our culture and our history. And then we walk the walk. When we do legislation and we carry out what we're supposed to do, we take care of the things that are fundamentally important to people. Stay out of the weeds and all talk about things that are, a fringe. but take care of the things that matter most to all of us that affect faith, family, and country. And when you do that and you show real results, and you're the adults in the room, and they're and you and you're, they're proud to say we are all one people, then things happen.
Definitely. United is something that we're looking for right now, Senator Flores, because we've been seeing a lot of no united things this year, especially this year. So, what is the message for you to our community now that we are around the corner on the elections day, November 3rd, and we are around the corner to start our early voting next week? What is the message to the community on, after this year and after what we've been seeing in 2020?
The message is that we uh, well, we have our fences, and the fences are the same as what I just mentioned earlier, and that we are a better product, and that provides for the quality of the total life. People are pretty wound up right now, and rightly so. And so we don't have to grind them up even more than or be the problem. We have to be part of the solution, and a reasonable solution. So we want to be able to demonstrate that we make folks' life, our life, your life, everyone's life through our deeds and words and actions. You know that we make your life better, and we make your life easier, and we make your life safer. And when you deal with those fundamental issues, and you don't go out there like you're trying to preach and convert, because we're all adults. Our culture is old, and very conservative in itself. Just walk the walk, and do what you say you're going to do, and then follow up, and always show people respect, and then show up.
Senator, I am glad you mentioned the word respect. One of the things that I am as an immigrant myself, I immigrated to the United States in 1962. I don't know if you know this. When I was 18 years old in 1976, I served at Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio, Texas. So I'm intimately familiar with Senate District 19 and the people and the culture. Most people don't understand. And you talk about a respect, and you talk about that the many are one in the United States. When I leave Brackettville, Texas, coming back to Houston, I go through a border inspection station where Customs and Border Patrol, everyone has to stop. I can report to you that the Border Patrol is not what everybody seems to think it is. The majority of Border Patrol down in South Texas are of Mexican American descent. They're proud Americans. There's African Americans. There are women. They're Caucasians. They're all Americans. They're doing a job to protect us. And Senator, you know this better than anyone else, having been a game warden in a vast region of Texas, also in law enforcement. But down in South Texas, I'm amazed that people don't realize that it's the Latino community that's involved in law enforcement. Our local sheriffs, our local deputies, our local DPS officers, our Customs and Border Patrol. And so I tell people in Houston all the time, they don't understand the phenomenon of why Latinos down on the border are supporting the conservatives. And I explain this to them, and you can chime in if you like. But in my county, Kinney County, we have 3 deputies. And when a coyote is bringing in a truckload of 10 illegal aliens, and they flip that truck, all of our deputies and our 2 ambulances are dispatched to the scene. We're left as taxpayers without any services. And I think that people are starting to get fed up with that, and they understand the importance of following the law and the Constitution. Is that how you see it on the ground?
Well, I think that overall, of course, we want to always be compassionate to people, and where there's genuine asylum needs, we have legitimate lawful ways to go about that. All of us. My great grandfather came from Mexico. And immediate family members, including my spouse, or she had a green card and got her citizenship. There's a right way to do things, and that sentiment is pretty much resonates throughout the community. And so, but to just ignore the rule of law is not something that is very receptive to most people. here, pretty much anywhere, but to ignore the rule of law, is not correct, and people do not support that. And so, while we want to make sure that our law, criminal justice system and our immigration system, work, and that the laws are followed, but at the same time having compassion for those that truly need it. It makes us the best nation on God's green earth. I guarantee you that should the reverse happen and we violated the borders of the Republic of Mexico, that we would not be receiving the same treatment on the other side. And they are rightly so jealous of maintaining their borders. So just as our neighbor maintains their integrity of their borders, the integrity of our borders is very important. At the same time, the rule of law is extremely important to people, and of course, where we must exercise compassion, we do so, but within the limits of the law.
I wholeheartedly agree, Senator. I mean, I think and I see our law enforcement down in South Texas as the most compassionate law enforcement I've seen. I can't tell you how many lives I've seen on the verge of being extinguished because they're crossing the Chihuahua Desert, and it's because of our law enforcement and our Customs and Border Patrol and our EMS and our DPS and our dedicated law enforcement that save the lives of the immigrants coming over. But you're absolutely right. There's a proper way to do it. There's a proper way to seek asylum, and there's a proper way to change legislation. So I agree with you wholeheartedly. Tell us about what other issues are important down in the counties down in Senate District 19. What issues are important to your community?
Of course, I represent a third of the city of San Antonio, and just came from San Antonio just a little while ago. But it's still having to deal with the issues of reviving, getting our economy back online, and we will. There's, the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun, and that there's also, you hear the word unprecedented and new normal, but you know what? There's nothing. This is not unprecedented, and there is no new normal. But these are not unprecedented times, but they're perilous times, as I heard the other day in the sermon. And in perilous times, you have to always remember who you are and what you stand for. And as you do that, you move forward in a more effective manner to be able to get our economy back online, get jobs going, to get people returning back to our lives, our productive lives, and not live in fear, but to move forward, taking the proper precautions as we would any other hazard, and get our state, this 10th largest economy in the world, back online, and to continue for everyone to get feel that we're alive once again. So in the big city, that's the issues. Out in the other areas, we have the oil fields, the Eagle Ford Shale and the Permian Basin are in this district. Very important to the future of our state and our nation. And so we get the oil field will bounce back as people get back from their cars and planes start flying, and we continue to get our product to market. We will bounce back. Our international trade and our two ports of entry in Del Rio and Eagle Pass are very important to the future of our nation and to interstate commerce, and remembering that not only are our ties through blood and culture, but the ties of commerce that exist between us and Mexico are deep-seated and something that is strategically important to both nations, and something that we should never forget or put in the back burner.
Senator, you were talking about the new normal. People are talking about the new normal, and things are changed, and nothing is going to be as we used to be before. How do you vision the legislation next year? I mean, like new bills, and how is this going to change? It is going to be something different in the legislation next year. How do you vision this? And people are, asking, what is the law is going to change on something? The situation is going to change on something, as we already been seeing a lot of changes.
I think that as long as you remember that, what you're seated in, again, remember who you are and what you stand for and where you came from. And with us, we have the great honor and privilege and blessing to have one of the best written constitutions on God's earth. And the Constitution is the basis of everything else. The So when you go as to how we function as a constitutional republic, and the way the laws are drafted and things are carried out in in public policy, it's as long as it's based soundly on what the Constitution guarantees. As far as the technical aspects, for example, of looking at different ways of carrying out functions, such as teaching remotely, like for university classes or for public education. Certainly, those things are that will adapt and will continue to adapt. And just as during our lifetimes, at least my own, have gone from having a solar calculator, which we thought was the best thing since sliced bread. And now we're talking here over Facebook Live. Everything's instantaneous, but we've adapted. But certainly, that doesn't mean that we need to change who we are, what we stand for, and where we came from, and the Constitution of the United States.
Senator, one of the issues that I think is important down in South Texas, of course, is healthcare. As you're aware, the medical community was concerned during the outbreak of COVID-19 that the Hispanic and African American community were disproportionately affected because of what they call comorbidities, right? So obesity, diabetes. One of the concerns I have for our region down in our district, and I say our district, Senate District 19, is access to health care. We're, as you know, Senator, most people need to know this, we're very rural out there. I mean, outside of the eastern part of San Antonio, the rest of the counties that are mentioned tend to be kind of rural, and you have to drive long distances for health care. Have we started to address that issue? What can we do to alleviate the inaccessibility to healthcare?
Well, certainly we have improved in the last session and need to continue to improve the ability through telemedicine. Telemedicine is proven to be something that is one of those adaptations that continues to provide for more access to healthcare in our rural communities, as well as expanding the infrastructure. When people think of infrastructure, you usually think of roads and railroads and things of that nature. But infrastructure also includes, the broadband accessibility, accessibility to the web. And so when we talk about infrastructure into the future, we began that in the last session. Senator Nichols had a very good bill there with rural broadband. And the mayor of Crystal City, Mayor Moreno, has been appointed by the governor on that board to explore different options for rural broadband. But all those, you talk about that infrastructure is important in the telemedicine. Also, as a co-sponsor on a bill last session that had to do with expanding the loan forgiveness for primary care physicians practicing in rural areas, and picked up from 150,000 to 185,000 in loan forgiveness, and that provided that they practice in the rural areas and underserved areas. So things like that across the board. As we move forward, the infrastructure, the telemedicine, providing for incentives for our nurses, doctors, ophthalmologists. I also serve on health and human services as well as finance. So those are two very impacted committees dealing with these very issues. But those are just a few examples of a number of things that we've done for rural accessibility. We can always do better.
Senator, we have a question. James Honey, he asked you if you can talk about closures versus opening.
Okay, closures as it relates to what? The bridges, closures, as a way they relate.
And he doesn't explain.
I suspect that he's talking about COVID-19.
Yeah,
so
the business, no?
That's the most important issue right now for Texans is
Absolutely.
Are we going to open? We're going to stay closed. We have different counties. Different counties have different policies. There doesn't seem to be, like, for example, in Harris County, the county judge has us under a lockdown. But other counties in Texas are moving towards almost complete reopening. So I think what is generally the policy for statewide?
Well, it is our intention and our wish to express to the governor that we open as quickly as we can across the board. But at the same time, to take measures but at the same time be safe about it and be prudent and as the governor bases his decisions on doctors and data, we look at what the doctors and the data say, and move forward as expeditiously as possible to get our state open. I'm all for getting it open as quickly as possible, but if the doctors and the data back it up, that makes it even better. And but the sooner we get the state open, the better it is for everyone.
Senator, we want to, first of all, thank you so much. We know how busy you are. We know the massive territory you have to cover out in South Texas, West Texas, and in the urban areas of San Antonio. So we thank you for sharing your thoughts and your ideas and your visions with Texans across the state of Texas and those in your district. I also want to thank you personally because you drove all the way to Harris County, Texas for our second annual Tough Tejano Awards in Houston, and you were featured on stage with our Texas Supreme Court Justice Eva Guzman, and I can tell you the crowd was extremely impressed and extremely pleased that you took the time to come out and share your views with us. So, Senator, take 1 minute, closing thought to despedirse and tell us exactly what we need to do to get you reelected.
What we need to do is we need to get out the vote, and that means everyone. No one stays home, and that so your cousins, your mom's cousin, everybody comes to the polls. The future truly rests. People ask all the time, well, how do we change this going on in our city? Well, when you have a low voter turnout, you reap what you sow, but by turning out, you can vote them out, and when you vote them out, their rules change overnight. So the most powerful person on God's green earth is the American voter. So vote your conscience and get out and vote. And then as you go out amongst them, tell our story and be respectful, and that why we are the better product, why we make your life better, easier, and safer. That it's a win-win for everyone. But God bless you, God bless Texas, and God bless our republic.
Thank you, Senator. We enjoyed having you, and we're going to move on to a state of representative district. And Andrea, I'm going to let you introduce our next guest.
Senador, muchísimas gracias. Y ahora vamos a presentar al State Representative Tony Tinderholt. He is a father, veteran, and a conservative, and he's running for the third time for a House District 94. Y buenos días, porque ya sabemos que hablas un poquito de español.
Yeah, no he hablado español en muchos años, más o menos 15, so I'm more comfortable with English, but I will try to understand you if you speak to me in Spanish. How are you guys today?
Well, Tony, thanks for taking time to be with us. I know that you're, just like the senator we had a moment ago in House District 94, are very busy, but for those of us that are tuning in, talk to us about your district. What are the issues that are important in your district? What is it that you want to accomplish in your next term? Because we know you're going to get reelected, but just tell us briefly, what are the important issues in your district?
So a little bit about myself, 21-year military veteran, running against a Democrat that wants to defund the police. Most of her money is coming from out of state, about 80% of it from California and New York, which is very telling. I like to say, don't California my Texas. The issues in this district right now, when I'm knocking doors, we're knocking a lot of doors right now. And what we're finding is that about 76% of the people in Arlington, Texas, Dalworthington Gardens, and Pantego do not want to defund the police in any way whatsoever. And that aligns with me perfectly. I'm endorsed by almost every police organization, CLEAT, TMPA, the Arlington police organizations, Dallas, Fort Worth. If it comes down to policing and protecting people, I fully stand behind them, and my opponent does not. I live in a pretty conservative district, and I think, sadly, across the country, what's going to happen quite a bit during this election cycle is going to be the top of the ticket race, President Trump versus Biden. But we can mitigate that. And the way to mitigate it is to get people involved, get them to talk to their community, get them to talk to people within their precinct. Every district, state house district will have dozens of precincts with precinct chairs. Find your precinct chair, talk to them, find out if you can lick envelopes, knock on doors, make phone calls, talk to people, and bring your friends and your family out to vote. This is an important election.
Tony, definitely you touch a very important issue, which is security and crime. And we have right now somebody commenting, and she is here in Houston, and she said, I'm a Latina, conservative from Houston. Crime in Houston is rising. We need more police. And it's not just in Houston, it's everywhere.
Yes, it is. And TCOL, the agency that oversees licensing, will be up for sunset this time. And what that means is every state agency gets looked at every 10 years to determine what kind of changes to make. I think there's going to be some changes to TCOL, and I think they'll all be positive changes. But my concern as just a citizen is the safety and security of my family while we're at home, while we're out shopping, while we're at a restaurant. Look, make no doubt about it. Texas is safer than a lot of places in the country because of our Second Amendment rights and how we vote on Second Amendment rights, allowing people, I take that back, not allowing. The government doesn't grant or take rights. Inalienable rights are God-given rights. It's our job to protect those rights. And I'll tell you, I will protect your Second Amendment right all day, every day. Police departments right now are having a hard time hiring people. The standards are high, and right now a lot of people are struggling with wanting to go do that for a living with what's happening. So I would encourage folks to speak out and make sure the police officers in your city know that you support them. I know the police chief down in Houston pretty well, Art Acevedo. He was the police chief when my best friend, who was his operations officer, was killed in the line of duty in Huntsville. I'm convinced that Art Acevedo wants a quality police force with lots of police officers to respond to 911 calls. I would encourage you down in Houston to please call your police department if you're having bad response time. I'm convinced that he wants to keep you safe down in Houston. And look, every chief I've met wants their city to be safe. The city councils do, with the exception of a few, which we're going to handle when we get back to session. Those cities that care more about defunding the police than protecting you, the taxpayer. The city charters require them to protect you. It's their duty.
Antonio, I'm going to call you Antonio right now. I want to, it seems that people tend to forget, and you're a young man, probably a lot younger than I am.
22, I'm 22.
For sure.
But we don't need comments from the peanut gallery here. In the late 80s and early 90s, when the Democrats were still in charge, we had in Texas, Antonio, what we called the revolving door at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. We erred on the side of the criminal and began to massively release felons from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and they flooded our urban areas to the point that Houston, Harris County, and other counties in Texas got so fed up that began, in my opinion, the sweep of the Democrats, not only from state district judge positions, but also in the legislature in the state of Texas. That was the demise of the Democrats. They took their eye off the ball. They failed to protect the average hardworking tax-paying Texan. And now we're back at it. Harris County, the Republicans were swept out, the Democrats came in, and crime is out of control. In fact, there are very few commissioners and judges that are following state statutes when it comes to releasing violent criminals. And you mentioned Art Acevedo, who was on television last week, saying that the criminals are laughing in the face of police officers because they know the minute they're arrested, they are released on personal recognizance bonds, and damn the taxpayer, and damn the citizen, and damn the safety of the good, law-abiding Texan. We're going back to the late 80s and 90s, and, we can't, I'm sure you're having the same problems up in the Arlington area.
So we're fortunate in Tarrant County. We have a district attorney that will prosecute people that break the law. And look, make no doubt about it. Latinos in my district, when we knock their door, they believe in law and order. And that's exactly what our nation stands for. Is we're a nation of laws and a state of laws and order. The Latinos in my district are frustrated about people flooding across the border and coming across illegally. They want them to do it legally, but they also want to be protected, and they believe in law and order. And when someone breaks the law, they should be punished, just like you and I believe. Do your time. People make mistakes, but when you break the law, we need to make sure that district attorneys are prosecuting them. In these liberal cities, you're exactly right. What's happened is judges, district attorneys, these folks have become elected. They're Democrats, they're liberal, and they're changing the entire landscape of that city and that county in a negative way, where they're trying to defund the police. They're giving the criminal the upper hand, and we just need to be careful. And the way that we're careful is we push conservative people out to vote. We push Republicans to go vote all the way down the ballot, because those are the seats that aren't at the top of the ticket. And we're a lot more likely to go all the way down and hit Republican on every single one. So if I can give anyone any advice that's here listening today, vote, bring your family, bring your friends, bring your neighbors, vote all the way down the ballot, because those folks at the bottom of the ballot are very, very, very important. It takes you an extra 2 minutes. Please make sure you vote all the way down the ballot and vote Republican.
Antonio, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I remind voters across the state of Texas all the time that neither Donald Trump nor Nancy Pelosi picks up your garbage, responds to your medical emergency, or shows up to your doorstep in the event that there's a crime being committed. So it is absolutely important, as Tony says. I know everybody gets excited about voting for president, but when was the last time you talked to the president in a forum? When was the last time, you communicated with the aide at the president's office? You're more likely to talk to your city council member, your MUD district member, your school board member, and more importantly, your state representative and state senator. And these people are at the bottom of the ballot. So this year, there is no straight ticket voting. In the past, those of us that were partisans could go in and hit R or a D. And that means every Republican was selected or every Democrat was selected. This year, we can't do that. So people like Tony, who's down at the very bottom, past the president, past the senator, past the U.S. Congress member, past, a lot of the county officials, he's way down at the bottom. You have to vote all the way down to the bottom of the ballot.
And I'm sorry, was I interrupting you?
No, that's fine. No, you're fine.
So one of the topics that they're talking about across the board, there's mailers from outside the state. I'll give you an example. My opponent, like I told you, 80% of her money came from out of the state. Mailers hitting everyone's mailbox across the district. You've seen them. They say that we're defunding schools and that we're against healthcare. Let me be very clear. There were cuts made in 2011 for education. All that funding has been restored. In last session, Republicans are the ones that pushed $5 billion in tax decreases and increasing teacher pay and pushing more money toward the classroom and getting more money for education. And then when we talk about healthcare, you're going to get all the stuff in the mail about opting into Medicaid expansion. Well, I want to tell you the side about Medicaid expansion they're not talking about. Before I go there, I want to tell you that I too want people covered. I want everyone covered. And the best way to do it is to get Texans back to work, increasing the number of jobs by 50 to 80,000 in a month, putting people to work because they love private health care better than they love government health care. Everyone does. But the side they're not telling you about on Medicaid expansion is that after 3 years, the federal government no longer pays for it and the state picks it up. 4 years ago, estimates were $10 to $12 billion a year that would cost Texas. My company, my employees that I own, their insurance has gone up by 33% every year since I've been open. So if you take those numbers, that 10 to 12 billion is probably closer to 20 to 22 billion. That's 10% of our state budget. So would I love to expand Medicaid and get that federal money that we're paying into? Absolutely. But we have to be careful. We got to look at the big picture. And the big picture is Texas cannot afford $20+ billion. So we need to be creative. In this session, I think that's going to be something that we're going to have to do. But the biggest answer is to get people back to work and get them private health care. I really believe that.
Well, I don't disagree, Tony, and that's a good point. I'm just going to make one observation. Obviously, we're located in Houston, Texas, where we have one of the world's largest medical centers, and there are some disconcerting issues affecting healthcare. Is a very complicated issue. But one of the concerns among a lot of people down here is that physicians, first of all, insurance companies and the healthcare industry is now referring to physicians as providers. They're no longer doctors. They're no longer physicians. They're providers. And insurance companies are making decisions that the physician ought to be making. And finally, I believe that there used to be a rule in Texas where doctors were not employees of hospitals because it kept the doctor independent to make a decision and be your advocate at the hospital. Today, as I understand, hospitals are employing physicians. The physicians work for the hospital, not for the patient. So it's a complicated issue. I know you guys are aware of this and you're going to tackle that, but I'm glad that you're on top of it. You obviously know that it's a very important issue for the state and for Texans, both in Harris County and, your district and all across the state. So, Antonio, we have about 3.5 minutes left. Tell us what are the other important issues in your district and tell people how they can get involved. What can they do in the last few weeks to help you?
And what we can tell our Latino community, we've been hearing and reading all over the news that the Latinos are the ones that it can make a big impact on the elections and also can keep this state red.
Yep. So a lot of people don't realize that aren't super involved in politics that every 10 years we do redistricting, and that's this year. Democrats want to take control of the House and the Senate because what happens is all this federal money comes in from all around the country, and there's a reason for that. All these mailers that have been hitting for my opponent are coming in because they want to flip the Texas House and flip the Senate. They want to do it so that they can redistrict Senate, House districts, congressional districts, so that they are Democrat leaning, so that they can get more people elected as Democrat. What's that mean to you in Texas? It means that if Texas is redistricted in an unethical manner by Democrats, that we will never win a presidential election again. Think about it. If Republicans don't win this election in redistricts like we do in an ethical and fair fashion, they will redistrict so that senators, congressmen and women, state Senate and state House seats will be flipped. And that redistricting will happen and create the environment where Texas no longer all the electoral votes would go Democrat. And I tell you, that's a very fearful day in my mind. And so the stakes are high. We need every voter. We need every Latino voter. We need every men, women, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, you name it. We need everyone at the table that can vote. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is. It doesn't matter what your sex, what your religion is. Go vote Republican. Bring 2 or 3 friends and neighbors. Vote Republican all the way down the ballot. If you need to contact me, I work for the people. I don't forget who I work for. I don't go to Austin and work for the establishment there. I work for you. And a good way to get a hold of me is TonyTinderholt.com or Tony@TonyTinderholt.com. I respond to those emails myself. My staff does not. I work for you, and I'll never forget that you're the ones that elect me. I go to Austin. I work for you. I want Texas to be safe. I've got a 2-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter, and I'm scared of what it's going to look like in 4, 8, 10, 12 years from now. I'm going to fight hard to make sure that Texas remains free, free market, Second Amendment rights are available. And look, I know Latino voters are very conservative when it comes to the life of an unborn child. I'm an advocate for that as well. So please contact us, Tony@TonyTinderholt.com, and TonyTinderholt.com is my website. Donate to people in your area, block walk for them, make phone calls, but getting out to vote. That's super important, and bring others to vote all the way down the ballot.
Well,
Salgan a votar.
Antonio, you're a heck of a Tejano and a proud father and a veteran. And by the way, what branch of the military did you serve in?
So I was a little different. I was a linguist in the Air Force for 10 years. I got out, and 3 days after September 11th, I joined the Army as an officer. So I did Air Force for 10 as a sergeant, and then Army officer for 11.
Well, I, as an Air Force veteran, would I'd say traitor. No, I'm kidding. We thank you for your service to our country. We thank you for your service to Texas. As I said, I think you're a great Tejano. I think you love Texas. You love your constituents. And I remind all of the voters in your district, particularly the young Latinos, which are a growing portion of our electorate, that if you loved Texas in the 80s and 90s, when crime was running rampant and the parolees from the Texas Department of Criminal Justice had their way, then go ahead and vote Democrat. But if you like the job expansion of Texas, and it's evidenced by the fact that New Yorkers and people from Pennsylvania and California are moving to Texas in droves, that is because of conservative business principles, limited government, a low tax base, a dedication to education, a dedication to making sure that our constitutional liberties are recognized by our local government.
Let's not forget real quick before I go, that what you just said is perfect. A lot of people don't know Texas is the 8th largest economy on the entire globe in the world. Think about that. 8th largest economy, and 20% of that is small business. It's people that are watching this today that own a business or frequent those small businesses. We teeter between Russia, 8th and 9th largest economy in the world, larger than Canada, larger than Mexico. Texas is a wonderful place for business and conservatives, and I love Texas, and I'm going to continue to fight for these values every single day that I'm in office.
All right, Tony, thank you. We're up next is going to be a fellow we want to join you in the Texas House of Representatives, and it is Lucio Valdez, who is running for Texas House District 52. Like Antonio before, like Tony Tinderholt, this is a veteran of the United States military and a law enforcement officer. This man has been fighting for Tejanos for years in Texas. And Lucio, welcome to the program. It's really nice to see you and nice to know you. Tell us a little bit about you and your district.
Buenos días, Lucio.
Thank you. My name is Lucio Valdez, and I'm the candidate for Texas House District 52. Okay, I got an echo. I'm married. My beautiful wife. We're out here block walking. I'm in my truck. So
Okay,
my
great.
wife, 29 years. We have 3 sons. One is a graduate from A&M. One is at Charleston State University, doing his master's program. And we got one that just started Baylor. So we're empty nesters now. And yes, I'm retired police officer from the city of Galveston. I did 21 years with Galveston. And I'm also a retired sergeant major. I retired out of Fort Hood after 34 years. All infantry, all Army. So, nothing against the Air Force there, but we appreciate your support.
I knew I'd get a little disrespect, Lucy.
Well, you're not Navy. We go to the Army. I did a year at West Point, so we go to the Army Navy game as much as we can. But we still play back and forth with the Air Force.
Lucio, I got to tell you a funny story. I had breakfast yesterday with my congressman in Houston from the 2nd Congressional District, and you may know him. His name is Dan Crenshaw. He's a former Navy SEAL. And I tell my Navy guys, I don't know why the American taxpayer gives you guys airplanes. You're always crashing them.
Well, and the Army, the people don't know that the Army has more boats than the Navy does. But they're boats, they're not ships, so. But anyway, thank you for your support. I am the candidate for Texas House District 52, and let me give you some insight on what's going on with my campaign. So my wife and I have been walking every day since August 1st, rain or shine, and we've personally knocked on over 4,000 doors. The contact with people has been very positive. We're hitting swing voters. We're using I don't know if you know the Advantage app. We're using the Advantage app, and we're hitting primarily swing voters. And we have very little negative contact. I don't know if y'all know, the area around Williamson County is very populated with incoming out-of-towners from New York and California. So our area is just exploding with new rooftops. We're hitting every house that we can by the ground game. But my opponent is getting very, very good support by Bloomberg and the Obamas, and Beto has been supporting him as well. Beto was here in Williamson County. I want to say this past weekend, or he's coming this coming weekend for a rally.
Real quick, are you talking about Francis O'Rourke?
Yes, sir, Francis.
Oh, okay.
Francis Beto. But yeah, the wannabe Hispanic. Yeah. So he's supporting my opponent. Again, like I said, he came to support Hagar and Talarico and Inman. I'm not sure how she says her name. The one who's running against Judge Carter. So he's, to me, I think he's doing more damage than good. But that's fine with me. But we're not letting up. We are pushing hard. Like I said, knocking on doors every day. We're out right now. My wife's still walking while I'm here in my truck on the webcam. So we're getting out. We're getting mailers out. We're getting we got a TV ad out. I don't know if you've seen it, but we have a commercial out. So my opponent has not done much campaigning at all. He's done a lot of protesting. He's been out protesting the police in Williamson County, and he's also donated $2,500 to defund the police to that organization out of Austin. And I don't know if you all are aware that Williamson County, Round Rock, and Hutto primarily have been noted as one of the safest cities in the state of Texas. So, just because of that being on all the magazines, people just flood to our area. But with Talarico defunding the police or wanting to defund the police, the crime rate in Austin has shot up 60% in the past 2 months. So, I want to say the violent crimes like shooting and stuff has shot up like 40. I want to say 46% was the last thing in the news. So it's very easy when we go to knock on a door and someone, we introduce ourselves and they go, "Well, I've never heard of you and I've never heard of him." So I simply just tell the citizens, "Well, my opponent has donated $2,500 to defund the police, and I'm a retired police officer, so I support our police 100%." And they automatically, you got my vote, and you got my family's vote. So it makes it an easy campaign when the other side wants to defund the police and take the police out of schools, which doesn't make it safe for our kids in school. The campaign, I don't want to say it's a smooth win, but it makes it a lot easier when we communicate with citizens on on this conservative side of caring for their safety. And when they dial 911, a police officer is going to come, not a social worker. And my opponent is pushing the social worker theory, which being a retired police officer, I can tell you that being on the street for 21 years in Galveston, every time we went to a call that a social worker had to be there, they would not approach that house until a police officer made sure that it was safe. So, the theory that the Democrats want to, defund the police and make it a non-police state is just a crazy, theory that is going to destroy our community. And, if the Democrats win, they're going to take our guns from us. So people have to understand the importance of us taking back House District 52 and taking back any other house that we lost, like 136 to Busey, because Busey has also donated $2,500 to defund the police. So the area in Williamson County is at very high risk of turning blue. Now, Talarico, he won last election in 2018 by a very small margin. And it wasn't that he won the popular vote. He just won because Republicans didn't get out to vote. Cynthia Flores only lost by 2,000 votes, but then it's not that the votes weren't there. It's that we didn't get people out to vote. So when we knock on the doors, we knock on all these doors, we tell people that if you don't get out to vote, we're going to lose again, and we can't afford that. It's very important that if you need a ride or whatever, that you call the GOP headquarters here in Williamson County, and we can we can get you to the polls, we can get you to vote somehow or another, but you have to get out and vote. We can't be lax and think that, Williamson County has been red for so many years, and it was just a fluke. we can't depend on that. We have to get people to go out and vote, and it's very important. I'm a type A personality person. I don't slack off on anything. I'm going to be out here knocking on doors and doing everything I can to the very last minute.
Lucio,
And I can tell you, I'm passionate about what I do.
I can tell you're passionate. I love the passion. I love the fire in the belly. One of the things that I see in a lot of candidates that run for office is they don't have that fire in the belly. You obviously do. And I want to make an observation. You're a great Texan. You're a great Tejano because you're campaigning from your pickup truck, number one. And number two, you mentioned how important the Second Amendment is to Texans and Tejanos. Most people don't realize that Tejanos across the state of Texas love their, legal firearm possession, and they don't want government taking it away from us. And so you, as a former police officer, talk to us, because I can still remember, Lucio, you're a very young man, but State Senator Jerry Patterson, who passed the concealed carry handgun law in Texas, when he was proposing that on the floor of the Senate, a Houston senator by the name of Rodney Ellis made a prediction that there would be mayhem in Texas, that there would be murders in Texas committed by everybody that was going to be a handgun owner. As a police officer, tell us what your observation has been from legal carriers in Texas.
As a police officer, I can tell you, in my whole career as a police officer, and I was a SWAT team leader for 20 of them 21 years, I can tell you that I never, in my 21 years, took a weapon or any kind of firearms, whether it be a pistol or a long gun or anything, from a law-abiding citizen. I've never had to do that. Now, criminals, yes, I've taken a lot of guns off of criminals in the street. But, if they take, that just shows if you take the guns away from the law-abiding citizens, only criminals are going to have the guns. Because in my 21 years, I have never taken a gun from a law-abiding citizen. Never had the need to, never had the purpose to, and they never give the opportunity to have to really do it. Now, criminals, on the other hand, the guns that they possess are stolen, are obtained illegally, are exchanged from one another without any kind of any kind of cause. They just find it or they just transport it to go do a different crime. So, in a criminal, the weapon is just a tool. They're just a monkey behind the trigger. So regardless of who's sitting behind the weapon, if it's illegal and they tend to do a crime with it, that's the problem. The problem is not the law-abiding citizens. Law-abiding citizens have never committed a crime. That's why they're called law-abiding citizens. It has a specific ring to it. But the criminal element will do whatever they can to counter a law-abiding citizen. So if we lose the state and it turns blue, we're going to lose not only our right to possess arms, but we're going to lose our right to protect ourselves because we're going to have nothing to protect ourselves with. So the law-abiding citizens will automatically become criminals in the eyes of the Democrats. And we can't have that. We have to fight to keep Texas red at any cost. Like I said, we're still out here block walking. As soon as I get off this call, I'll be hitting the street again, and I'll take a break for lunch, and we'll hit it again this evening.
Well, now I see that you're now giving us a tour of your district.
I know. I was about to say that. You're like really working now on the company.
My wife. Here's my wife is here.
Hey, you have a beautiful Uber driver there, Lucio.
Yes. Yeah, she's out walking because we don't take any breaks. We can't. People in my district have to understand that I don't take this as a given task. I hit everything I've ever do with the passion of a winner. You don't enter something with intent to not win. So I hit this hard, and we do it every day. We just don't do it on Sunday because we spend a lot of time in church, and I mow the church yard. So I do that on about every other weekend. I mow the church yard. So Sundays we don't block walk. We try not to do anything unless there's an event that comes up. But other than that, I'm very passionate about pro-life and our Second Amendment rights. And my wife's a retired school teacher, so the importance of TRS. I have a meeting on Friday with TRS because.
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry.
You keep
Yes,
saying
sir.
you keep saying your wife, but I'm sure your wife has a name. And now that we've seen her beautiful face, can you tell us what her name is and a little bit about her?
Let's hear her.
Yeah, well,
Let's say something.
She's a campaign manager.
Thank you.
Her name is Bridget, and we've been married for going on 28 years.
Oh my gosh, she's a saint for putting up with you.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Next week is our 28th anniversary.
Congratulations.
So I promised her that we wouldn't work because Army is paying UTSA. So we're gonna watch the Army UTSA game for our anniversary.
Let's have your wife send a message to the women to go and vote.
Yes. She's going to send a message to the teacher voters because she's been hitting all her teacher friends on the Facebook and sorry about that, rough road. So she's been sending the message out, to all her teacher friends because Tallarico, he campaigned that he was a teacher and that he's a teacher. He was only a teacher for 2 years in San Antonio. And if you listen to him talk in our forum on the Texas American Statesman in Austin, you can see that there was during the shooting at the Sandy Hook shooting, that scared him. So he was afraid to be in the classroom, so he quit teaching. But yet here in Round Rock, the Round Rock ISD tried to establish their own police department, and Tallarico was opposed it. So his ideology is that he's scared to teach because he's afraid somebody's going to come in shooting, but yet he doesn't want other school districts to have their own police department to protect the kids. So it doesn't make any sense. So that's another reason that it's important that I get in the House, because I want to support the safety for our children. I want to support the retirement for our teachers and help the teachers get a good health care, which is very important. So, because that not only affects the teachers, but it affects me and my family because my wife's a retired school teacher. So, I'm sorry, Bridget is a retired school teacher.
All right.
That makes me passionate about that also.
Yeah, I can tell that you've got a lot of passion. I love your energy. I love that Bridget is your campaign manager. I'm sure that she's keeping you on the straight and narrow path. She obviously is a great campaign manager because you have a lot of enthusiasm. You've got that winning spirit. And by the way, I want to say that Wendy Mitchell texted us and told us that she's an independent. It was on the screen earlier. She's voting Republican. Thank you, Wendy. But talk to your friends and make sure that all the people and influence go out and vote. It's very important in Texas. And to our friends in Pennsylvania, Lucio, we have some people viewing in Pennsylvania that are wishing us well here in Texas. And he lives in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. So we have viewers around the world, but we're certainly enthusiastic and appreciative that our friends in Pennsylvania are watching. And, if you're a good, solid, hardworking, patriotic American, we welcome you down in Texas. Thanks for chiming in. Thank you for emailing us. Lucio, you have about 40 seconds to tell voters in your district in Texas how they can help you and how they can go out and make sure that they all vote all the way down the ballot. But ask them, make a pitch to them, the voters in your district.
Okay, yeah, well, thank you. It is very important. Like I said, we're walking every day. If you want to help walk, any of my cards, my phone number is 703-862-4171. People don't believe that when they call, I answer the phone or I call them back shortly after I finish a meeting like this. You can help me by block walking. You can help me by phone, by doing phone banking. Financial help is always great. We got flyers going out. We got TVS going out. That's money. So any help that way. mainly help is tell your Latino friends that the conservative way of life is the Catholic and the Christian way of life. It's truly believing that we save unborn babies every day by voting conservative, by voting Republican. The Democrats will allow a child to be killed. It doesn't make any sense a day after they were born. So I don't understand that as a police officer, as a Christian, as a father. Please help. We got to win back this seat. It is very important that we keep Texas red. Go to LucioValdez.com. If you could donate. If you can help, give me a call and we'll give you a foot to walk. And thank you very much. This is my phone number. I'm not afraid to pass it out. So I want people to call me. You can't believe how many times people have called me and said that they've called Tallarico and he never returns their calls. He never returns their calls. So I thank you for your support. Probably a Hispanic, representative in Texas, and thank you for your support.
Well, excellent. I got to say, in the Hispanic world, we have a saying, you have ganas.
Le echas muchas ganas, de verdad.
Muchas ganas. Anyway, we had your phone up there, folks. If you want to help Lucio, you've got to admire this man's enthusiasm and energy. Help him out. Help him and Bridget out. They're out there working hard to make sure that Texas stays Texas. Andrea, we're out of time. Tell us about next week and tell everybody what they need to do.
Lucio, muchas gracias y sigue en la campaña y muchas ganas y mucha suerte.
De nada, gracias.
Chao, chao.
Chao.
Y a ustedes, muchísimas gracias por habernos acompañado. We're having every week, we're having different candidates for state representative. And the most important thing is we want you to know that this year is completely different. This year, not only we're going to have 3 weeks of early voting, but also it's not a straight ticket. So you have to go all the way and vote your values. That's the most important thing. And we're going to be also next Wednesday. I don't know if we're going to have another 2 or 3 guests.
We're going to have as many candidates as possible. There's a lot of need for information, especially since we don't have straight ticket voting in Texas. So we want to bring you all of our conservative candidates across the state of Texas that are making Texas, Texas. And we appreciate those on Facebook that have been sending us messages. I think Ms. Hobbs just put up a message up there. But, this is an interactive program for you folks. We want to show you the quality and the caliber of candidates that are running, particularly these Latino candidates. For far too long, the media has portrayed Latinos and immigrants as far left, liberal Democrats. Folks, we're not. We're conservative. We're flag waving. We're military loving. We're law enforcement loving. We're constitutionalists. We love our families. We're appreciative to be in this country and the opportunities we've been given by the American taxpayer. We're part and parcel of America. We want to make a contribution. Just because we're bilingual doesn't mean that we're leftist socialists. No, we're not. We're conservatives. And as Andrea said, vote our values. We're not telling you what party to vote for. Although, obviously, Texas Latino conservatives, right? But we're confident that if you vote your values, that Texas will stay Texas, right?
Texas will still red.
Yeah, be red.
Be red.
Okay.
And as you said, contributions. So please go to TexasLatinoConservatives.com, TexasLatinoConservatives.com, and help us to help. The only way to help us to help is with your contributions. So be part of the big family that we're growing. This year has been amazing. We've been growing. A lot of people have, show us a lot of support. So help us to help. This is the only way that we stay with our values, and running away from what we run away from our countries.
That's
and
right.
We don't want that in this country.
Exactly. So until next week, God bless you. Don't forget, volunteer, donate, do whatever is necessary for your local candidate all the way down the ballot. And don't go to the polls by yourself. Make it a family affair. Bring some neighbors, bring some friends, bring your children. We'll see you all next week. God bless you.
Octubre 13 empieza hasta el 30 de octubre y noviembre 3 son las elecciones. Así que nos vemos la otra semana y vaya a votar.
Vaya con Dios.